My own mother had a secret text thread for 3 years, and they named it The Real Family. I didn't find out by accident. I found out because a 13-year-old couldn't hide her guilt anymore. Before I take you inside that Thanksgiving dinner where everything shattered, do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe to Anonymous Confessions, and drop your location in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from tonight. My name is Sarah. I'm 37. I work 12-hour shifts in the ER at a county hospital outside Cleveland. And 3 weeks ago, I discovered something that made every late holiday, every missed birthday, every, oh, you must have misread the time, suddenly makes sense. My family had a second group chat. 14 people, 3 years, nearly 3,000 messages. And they called it The Real Family. I found it on my niece's iPad. She'd left it open while getting a snack, and the first message I saw was from my older sister, Jen. It said, "Remember everyone, don't post anything about the party until Sarah leaves the room." I stood in my niece's kitchen, holding a tablet that wasn't mine, reading a conversation I was never supposed to see. And the person they talked about most? It wasn't even me. It was my grandmother. If you've ever been the last one to know something everyone else was in on, you're going to feel this story. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to Anonymous Confessions, and tell me in the comments, have you ever found a secret message about yourself? Let me rewind to last October. I was helping my niece, Mia, with a science fair project, soil erosion. She'd propped her iPad against a cookbook to watch a tutorial. I glanced over, and a notification slid down from the top of the screen. Jen, don't forget, everyone Venmo $50 for Mom's gift. Do not mention it to Sarah. I read it twice, then a third time. 14 names in that chat. My mom, my 2 sisters, my brother-in-law, cousins, even my aunt's new husband, a man I've spoken to maybe 4 times. Everyone except me. And except my grandmother. I didn't scroll. I didn't open the iPad. I just pulled out my phone and took a single picture of the lock screen. 1 notification. That's all I had. But it was enough to change everything. Because for 3 years, I'd been told I was paranoid. For 3 years, I'd shown up to holidays 2 hours late with food nobody asked for. For 3 years, I'd driven my grandmother 2 hours each way because no one else could get her. And all that time, they'd been coordinating in a chat named after the family they'd decided I wasn't part of. Let me tell you about the signs I ignored. 2 summers ago, my nephew graduated 8th grade. Jen texted our main family chat. Ceremony at 2 p.m. I left work early, bought a card with $50 in it, something my dad used to do. Drove 45 minutes. I walked into an empty auditorium. A janitor was stacking chairs. The ceremony had started at noon. Jen texted back, "Oh, they changed it last minute, sorry." Then there was my grandmother's birthday. I baked a lemon cake, her favorite, drove 2 hours to the VFW hall where we always celebrate, walked in at 4 p.m. carrying that cake on a sheet pan. The room was empty, chairs stacked, lights half off. A bartender looked at me and said, "Honey, that party ended 3 hours ago." My sister answered on the 3rd ring. "We moved it up. Didn't you get the text?" I checked every thread on my phone. Nothing. "Must have gotten lost," Jen said. "You know how group chats are." I drove 2 hours home with a lemon cake on my passenger seat. Told myself it was a glitch, bad signal, technology. I told myself what my dad always said. Don't assume the worst about people who share your blood. But here's what I learned later. Those texts weren't lost. They were sent to a chat I wasn't in. Every Sunday, no matter what shift I worked, I called my grandmother, Ruth. She's 74, lives alone in a small house 2 hours east of Columbus. Same house where she and her grandpa ran a grocery store for 30 years. She's the only person in my family who asks about my day like she actually wants the answer. A few weeks before I found the chat, Ruth told me something that didn't register at the time. "Your mother keeps changing plans on me last minute," she said. "I showed up to Easter with deviled eggs and everyone had already eaten." I said something useless like, "That's frustrating, Grandma." She said, "It's more than frustrating, Sarah. It's a pattern." She was right. It was a pattern. The same pattern I was living inside without seeing it. Because when you're standing in the middle of a maze, all you see are walls. Ruth was standing just outside it, watching both of us get turned around by the same people. The night I found the chat, I sat in my car in my sister's driveway for 20 minutes before I could drive. Engine running, heater on, hands at 10 and 2, the way my dad taught me. I opened the main family chat on my phone, the one I was in. I scrolled back 3 months and counted. 47 messages, 31 of them were mine. The rest were thumbs up emojis, a K here and there. Not a single real conversation, not a single plan that actually matched what happened. That chat wasn't a family group. It was a waiting room, a decoy, the lobby where you sit while the real decisions happen behind a closed door. Then something else hit me. I scrolled through the member list. Mom, Jen, my other sister Kate, brother-in-law, Mia, me. 6 people. Grandma Ruth wasn't in it. I'd asked my mom about that once. She said, "Oh, you know Ruth, she doesn't like group chats." But Ruth texts me every Sunday, never misses, sends me photos of her garden with captions like, "The tomatoes are winning." Ruth doesn't dislike group chats. Ruth was never invited to one. By midnight, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of water I hadn't touched, thinking about my dad's house, a 3-bedroom ranch on a half-acre lot. He died 5 years ago, heart attack at 61. The house went to my mom and the 3 of us, equal shares. 6 months before I found the chat, Jen called me out of nowhere. "Have you thought about signing over your share of Dad's house? It's just sitting there. Taxes, insurance, it adds up." I said, "No, that house is all I have left of him." Jen's voice shifted. Not angry, calculated. "Fine, just thought I'd ask." At the time, I thought it was casual. Jen works in real estate. Maybe she was just being practical. But at midnight, staring at that screenshot, I understood. That call wasn't casual. It was coordinated. The question had been workshopped in a chat I wasn't in. I opened a real estate app. Houses on Dad Street were selling for $280 to $310. Our house with the half-acre and updated kitchen, maybe $290. My share, roughly $95,000. I didn't know it then, but they'd already contacted a realtor without telling me. Without telling Grandma Ruth, whose name was still on the deed. This story hits different when you realize how deep the planning went. If you're still here, do me a solid. Smash that like, subscribe to Anonymous Confessions, and tell me in the comments, would you have confronted them or walked away? I sent one text that night. Not to my mom, not to Jen. I sent that screenshot to the one person they'd been trying to keep quiet for 3 years. I typed 4 words to Grandma Ruth. "Can you see this?" She called me 31 minutes later. No hello, no warm-up. "Is this real?" 3 years, Grandma. Almost 3,000 messages. Silence. 5 full seconds. I could hear the clock in her kitchen, the one my grandpa bought at an estate sale in 1978. "They told me you canceled Easter," she said. "I never canceled anything, Grandma." More silence. Ruth isn't the kind of woman who fills quiet with noise. She fills it with decisions. "Your grandfather ran our store through a flood and a recession," she said. "I am not going to cry over a group chat." Her voice was steady, but I heard the edge underneath it. Not sadness, anger. The kind controlled, the kind that has already moved past shock and is building something with its hands. She told me what she'd pieced together. My mother had been telling Ruth I didn't want to come to family events, that I was too focused on work, that I preferred being alone. For 3 years, my own mother had been narrating a version of me to my grandmother that didn't exist. "Pamela told me you stopped caring," Ruth said. "I should have known better. You called me every Sunday. You never missed." "What do you want to do, Grandma?" "I want to ask your mother one question." She didn't tell me what it was. I didn't push. Thanksgiving morning, I pulled into my mom's driveway at 12:50. The driveway was full. Jen's SUV, my brother-in-law's truck, three other cars I'd recognized from holidays I'd arrived too late to see parked. They were already here, an hour and 50 minutes before the time they told me. Jen opened the door. Her face went through three expressions in 2 seconds: surprise, confusion, fear. "You're early," she said. "Am I? I thought it started at 3." She stepped aside. I walked in. The dining room was fully set. 20 place settings, bread rolls in baskets, green bean casseroles steaming, 2 bottles of wine already open. This wasn't a family waiting for 3 o'clock. This was a family that had started without me again. My mom came around the corner from the kitchen. The smile she put on took visible effort. "Sarah, honey, we moved things up a little bit." "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom." And there, in the corner armchair, sitting with her coat still folded on her lap, was Grandma Ruth. We sat down at 1:15, 20 people around 2 tables shoved together. I sat next to Ruth. Across from us, my mom and Jen. Small talk moved around the table like a dish nobody wanted. Weather, gardens, football. Then my mom cleared her throat. "Jen, why don't you say grace?" Jen folded her hands. Everyone bowed their heads. "Lord, we thank you for this meal and this gathering. We are grateful for this family, the real family that shows up for each other." The real family. She'd put it right there in a prayer at a table I'd been lied to about attending for 3 years. Under the table, Ruth placed her hand on my knee. One light squeeze. I glanced at her. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Not yet. I picked up my fork. I ate. I waited. The first crack came between the main course and dessert. My aunt leaned across the table. "Sarah, this turkey is wonderful. Really, you outdid yourself." From the corner of my eye, I saw my mom's jaw shift. "Well," my mother said, reaching for her wine, "it's the one thing she contributes." A few people laughed, the uncomfortable kind. Jen added, "Mom, stop," but she was smiling into her napkin. My mom waved her hand. "I'm kidding. Sarah knows we love her. She's just always busy with work, missing things." "She did miss Tyler's graduation," Kate said, quiet, matter of fact, like she was reading a line someone else had written. I set my fork down. I wanted to say, "Because you gave me the wrong time. Because all of you gave me the wrong time every time for 3 years." I didn't. I looked at Ruth. She dabbed her mouth with the napkin, set it beside her plate, and nodded. Then she reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out her phone, the old model, the one with the cracked case. She placed it face up in the center of the table, right between the cranberry sauce and the gravy boat. The screen showed a screenshot. White background, gray notification banner. The words were small, but at a table this tight, the people closest could read them. "Pamela," Ruth said. Her voice was level, not loud, not shaking. "What is the real family?" The table went silent. Not the polite kind, the airless kind. The kind where you hear the furnace click on in the basement. My mom's smile was still on, but it had frozen. Solid on the surface, liquid panic underneath. "Mom, that's nothing, just a planning chat for surprises." A planning chat with 14 people for 3 years, nearly 3,000 messages, and my granddaughter isn't in it? My mom's eyes cut to me, fast and sharp. "How do you—" "Because I asked," Ruth said, "and because someone finally told me the truth." Then she reached into her other pocket and pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper. She unfolded it slowly. Her handwriting was small and precise. She made a list. 14 events over 3 years where you told me Sarah canceled, declined, or didn't want to come. She read each one. Easter, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Tyler's graduation, her own birthday. Each time, the same pattern. Sarah was told one time. The real time existed in a chat she'd never seen. When Ruth finished, she folded the paper and set it on the table next to the phone.
14 lies, she said, and the only person who always showed up was the one you left out. The furnace clicked off. Somewhere in the kitchen, a timer beeped. Nobody moved. My cousin Mark was the first to speak. "Is this true, Jen? You gave Sarah wrong times on purpose?" Jen's composure cracked. It was just easier to plan without the person who cooked Thanksgiving for 4 years," my aunt cut in. My mom's voice rose. "Sarah thinks she's better than all of us since she got that degree. She refused to help Jen with the house investment. She refused to—" "I never said I was better than anyone, Mom." It was the first time I'd spoken since sitting down. My voice was low, steady, steady. Not once. That was the moment everything broke open. If you've ever had one person stand up for you when nobody else would, you know what that feels like. Hit subscribe to Anonymous Confessions, drop a comment with your story, and let me tell you how this ends. Ruth stood up, folded her napkin, pushed in her chair, reached for her coat. "Mom, you can't just leave. It's Thanksgiving." Ruth buttoned her coat, top button first, then down. She didn't rush. "Pamela, I have spent 3 years being told my granddaughter doesn't love me, that she chose work over family, that she stopped caring." Ruth looked at her daughter. "That ends today." I opened the front door. Cold November air pushed in. Behind me, I heard the dining room erupt. Craig's voice first. "I told you this would happen." Then Jen, "Shut up, Craig." Then my aunt, quieter, "Pamela, how could you?" Ruth walked through the door ahead of me. I followed. I pulled it shut behind us. We sat in my car for a full minute without speaking. Through the front window, I could see shapes moving, people standing, arms gesturing, the kind of choreography that happens when a family realizes the floor has shifted underneath them. Ruth buckled her seatbelt. She looked at the house for another moment. Then she turned to me. "Take me to Waffle House." I laughed. The real kind. The kind that comes up from your stomach and surprises you because you forgot laughter was still an option. "Your grandfather would have loved this," she said. "He always said the best meals happen after you leave the wrong table." I pulled out of the driveway. Behind us, the house got smaller. Ahead of us, the highway opened up. Some tables are small. Some tables are just right. And sometimes walking away from 20 people is the only way to find the one you actually belong. So that's my story. 3 years, 14 people, nearly 3,000 messages, and one grandmother who reminded me that real family isn't a group chat you control. It's the people who show up without being managed, the ones who don't need a separate channel to decide if you belong. And honestly, that's where it all ended.